This is a 1997 BMW M3. More specifically, it's my BMW M3, which means I've rebuilt the engine for more power, and I'm currently yanking out the automatic transmission and replacing it with a manual transmission for more fun. For me, driving cars is a passion. It's where I feel most free. But CO2 emissions from, well, transportation here in the US are a major factor in climate change, and climate change is playing a big role in our fire season here in the inland Northwest.
The trends over the last 10 years have been towards more severe fire seasons due to hotter and drier summers.
That's meteorologist Matt Deere with the Washington Department of Natural Resources. When we talk average fire season now, it means something drastically different than it did, say, 10 years ago. Hotter, drier summers dry out vegetation like trees, brush, or even grass, and that allows things to ignite faster and fires to grow more rapidly and burn hotter, becoming more devastating. Last year felt like a calm fire season, especially in recent memory. But in the big picture, it really wasn't as calm as it might have seemed.
In Washington, we still burned about 170,000 acres, which compared to the last 10 years is about 200,000 acres below normal. However, if you look at our average acres burned between 1992 and 2010, in that time frame, we only averaged 140,000 acres a year.
The average fire season now burns almost double the acres in the state of Washington than it did, say, 10 years ago. And that seems to be a trend across much of the western US. And that means it's time to change how we think about fire season. Right now, things are looking good. Our cool, wet spring gave life to the snowpack in the mountains and filled our vegetation with moisture, meaning potential fuels are harder to ignite and it's harder to get those fires to spread, for now. Forecasts indicate a below average start to fire season. Thanks to our cool, wet spring, it looks like we're pretty good through the start of summer. In general, our summers have been hotter and drier, meaning our fuels like grass, trees, or brush dry out. And that makes them more prone to burning. So overall, a fire that might start in a calm season and just fizzle out has the ability to grow faster, spread quicker, and burn hotter, becoming much more devastating. This year looks to be no exception to our recent pattern. We currently sit under an El Nino watch, with a 60% chance of an El Nino forming by July. What that would mean is an even hotter, even drier summer than what has become our new norm. Because of that forecast, long-range outlooks put the possibility of more devastating wildfires occurring later on this summer. It essentially boils down to what starts the fires. Historically, lightning is responsible for some of our biggest wildfires in the Northwest. Lightning strikes in remote areas can spark fires that are hard for crews to access, allowing the fires to grow more freely. As storm activity calms later in summer, it's all on us. Our primary ignition source of wildfires in the Northwest is humans. That includes things like campfires, fireworks, power lines, cigarettes, tow chains on trucks, and a whole lot more. There's no magic crystal ball that can predict where our fires will be or how many we'll see in a given season. But what we do know is that fire season is getting worse, and that is thanks to our hotter, drier summers across the Northwest. It boils down to fire weather days. Hot, dry, windy conditions are when we see most fire ignitions and most rapid fire growth. By exercising caution on extreme fire danger days, we can make a difference.
KREM2 viewer Nat asks, will all the heavy snow we've gotten this winter help prevent the wildfires from getting so bad this summer? Our sources to verify this question are Nick Bond, a research scientist at the University of Washington who also serves as the state climatologist, and Matthew Deere, a meteorologist for the Washington Department of Natural Resources. First, let's start with the snowpack. It was a good snow year in the inland Northwest, with several of our local ski resorts extending their seasons because the snow just kept falling. Both Deere and Bond say Washington finished the season with a slightly higher than average snowpack for most regions in the state.
Does an above average snowpack translate into a more or less severe fire season?
Right. So, yeah, you're right on point. We have had pretty good snowpack across Washington this year, including in the Columbia Mountains, the Northern Rockies, out towards Spokane. However, a snowpack doesn't necessarily correlate directly with fire season.
Deere says the heavy snow is certainly good for things like replenishing reservoirs and our streams and rivers, but it's not the best predictor for how severe our fire season will be. A better predictor, the temperatures we see in June, July, August, and September.
So while good snowpack is really beneficial for the ecosystem, it's beneficial for the streams and the hydrology of the area, it doesn't really correlate that much with how many acres we're going to burn in the summer.
State climatologist Nick Bond agrees. High heat, low humidity, and of course the wind are the biggest drivers of wildfires. And predicting those factors weeks and months in advance with any kind of accuracy certainly isn't easy.
How the fire season is going to play out is really dependent on the weather going ahead. And of course, our crystal ball is a little bit murky in that regard.
But to get an idea of what we can expect, Bond and Deere look at historical trends, and both say the data isn't great news for wildfire potential.
The odds are, again, we're just going to be a little bit on the dry, warm side. And I'm just hoping that we don't have any devastating heat waves or any combination of heat and wind.
So we can verify, no, our snowpack is not a good indicator for how our wildfire season will play out. Rather, our summer heat is a better predictor. If you have a story you'd like us to verify, email them to us at verify@krem.com.
Wildfires and smoky skies are synonymous with the inland Northwest summer weather just as much as hot and dry days are. So I'm going to go into more detail of not only our summer forecast, but even our smoke forecast and the details that could influence it for this upcoming summer. So with that, we have to start with El Nino. A lot of hype around it returning by the summer, most likely by July, and continuing to strengthen throughout the rest of the year. And yes, El Nino can increase summer heat by quite a lot, even globally. But El Nino is more of a wintertime influencer than the summertime, but we do still see the influence of it for the upcoming months here. So our summer forecast for the inland Northwest breaks down like this. We will likely be having above average temperatures for the next 3 to 4 months, and we are favoring below average precipitation and rainfall. So hot and dry, but probably even more so for 2023. Now, what about the smoke part of the forecast? Well, this is a little bit more tricky. First of all, the last 6 years, 5 of the last 6 years have had 3 to 7 days of unhealthy air quality in the Spokane area, including in 2020 when it was a week straight of such, including a couple hazardous air quality days and the worst recorded air quality in Spokane's history. So there's no indication that that will change, but smoke can come from anywhere across the West Coast. From the south, north, west, or even east. It all depends on what direction the wind is blowing. So we do look at the regional wildfire outlook to see where the smoke might more likely be coming from. In California, it's less likely, with a below average wildfire season expected due to the record-setting and historic snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas from this past winter. Meanwhile, most of Canada is expecting an above average wildfire season, and that's already in play this May. Wildfires are already burning out of control in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and those fires already producing some hazy and smoky skies across the northern U.S. It all just depends on what direction the wind is blowing. If it's more of a westerly wind, we'll see that smoke travel a lot more easterly. But if it comes out of the north and east, it would be heading in our direction. And that's just one example already this early in the season of what is to come. So we will have to take it by a case-by-case basis in terms of the smoke, and it all just depends on where the fires are burning and what direction the wind is coming from.